My big suggestion to students, particularly through high school, is
you can do anything.
Choose it for you, not for it is worth
it. Just focus on the next step.
Doesn't matter what you're doing.
Don't be afraid.
As long as you're doing something.
That is such good advice.
I don't think I could see myself doing anything
It's a challenging life.
Student nights, Wednesday to Saturday.
I worked on that house.
I racked up every single dollar of debt that I
I
possibly
think there's a lot of pressure on high school.
Yeah, I
kids
just
these days,
love working outside.
And if money is something that you care a lot
In
about.
hindsight,
I've also been a very indecisive
But you
person.
keep looking for roads that have been less
It
travelled.
was just that moment that I knew what I wanted to do. So nothing else is going to change that.
Welcome to the
Well, I'm
guest
going to
speaker.
start because some of what you're saying I'm going to bring up. So sit back and relax because I'm going to make you sound pretty cool. I'm just going to start with, do you have a tattoo with 1514?
No,
You are Olympian number 1514?
I am, I guess. I fully forgot my number. How good.
There you go. So, yeah, look, I suppose ultimately we needed to start. So people sitting there going, who's this handsome young fella? One, you are an Olympian. You're a bronze medalist. So let's put that in perspective. But there's some other stuff I want to talk about first. So I had to start with this because your sister said we had to. She said if in pottery there was going to be an Olympic, she would have won gold. So she was slightly disappointed with you. There was obviously a lot of sibling rivalry going on, but it was lovely to have her on. And can you hold up one of her cups, Micah?
There it is. Mr. Ceramics represent.
There you go. So look, my school memories, the thing was, the thing that jumped to me was this cheekiness, this young boy who had some cheek about him, had a personality. And I remember a principal walking into my room one day and going, we're going to have to put Micah in your class because he's doing something special. And it was probably the first time I'd ever been asked to deal with something I did a lot later in teaching, which was gifted and talented, where you adjust programs for kids who are really busy in athletics or they're going to head off and go overseas to compete. You were competing a lot. You were beginning to do this sailing stuff. Towards the end of that, I remembered having a conversation with you, and you were at a crossroads. Do I go to Auckland? And there was this mention of this girl who I presumed you were going to sail with, and you had you've reached that precipice, which is a lot of what our kids do. They sit in year 13 or 12 or 13 and go, do I go uni? Do I travel? And that's that word pathways we use a lot. And that's what we're trying to get kids to think about. And I know that was probably one of the first decisions you had. Do I sail or do I do what everyone else does and do something different? I don't know whether you remember that or not. You were also deputy head boy. And there's photos of you as a little tiny kid in school sailing photos. So I don't know whether we've ever had a sailing team again in our life and at our school in Cambridge, but it was a weird thing that we even had one. So ultimately you are an Olympic bronze medalist with Erica Dawson at the Paris Summer Olympics in 2024. That was your second Olympics. You also competed in 2020. You've been to the World Champs in the 29er and the NACRA under 23s before claiming the inaugural Red Bull Foiling Generation World title with Liv Mackey in 2016. Part of Team New Zealand, who finished second at the 2017 Youth America's Cup. And you're the pilot of the E1 Series Team Drogba, owned by Didier Drogba, who was a UEFA Champions League winner, 4-time Premier League winner, and 2-time African Footballer of the Year. So this guy has enough money to throw at you so you can let your hair out and go sailing. And that's maybe the world you live in when people think sailing, Team New Zealand, America's Cup. And we're going to ask you a lot about that later, whether that's the reality of it, that's how you feel. But here's the interesting thing I found is you grew up sailing in a little tiny lake near Te Awamutu. And so I just wonder whether there's no excuses for kids when we talk sailing that you have to necessarily be where I am in Whitianga or up in Auckland where the harbour is. You grew up in a lake and that's where you got started. What I love is when I last heard you speak, your story about sitting in a hall with Rob Waddell, listening to him and thinking to yourself, I'd love to come back and do something like that when I'm older. Like, I'd love that opportunity. Maybe I was successful enough. And that was something when you spoke, I thought was really cool, because that's what we're trying to achieve here, Grace and I, is kids hear from people like you in whatever field, whether they're a tattooist, an engineer, or a professional sailor, and they get that opportunity to hear that insight, to have that something come alive in them, and off they go. And I'm glad that Rob Waddell was your one, because I remembered being a real supporter of his, and I know there were races he was having and he had his heart problems, and I was devastated he didn't win. And incredible athlete, probably only put back by that one issue he had to deal with. In terms of who this podcast resonates with, I think this is interesting, because I don't think it's always going to be this. There's a lot of sailing kids, more than I think. If you don't live in the major centres where there's sailing clubs, you probably don't appreciate how many kids go sailing every weekend. So there'll be a lot of sailors who will go, I want to be Micah Wilkinson. There's no doubt about that. But I think you represent the athletes. There's now surf academies at a lot of schools, kids who live near the ocean, so they've got similar decisions to make. Do I go to Australia? Do I try and win competitions? There's dive academies, surf life-saving. There's boating, waka ama. We are surrounded by this ocean. We're a country famous with our interaction with it. And you're someone who loved it, did it, and made a decision to pursue it. So I think you represent a hell of a lot of people. The New Zealand Sailing Trust offers adventure-based programs on historical yachts, I know, on leadership, teamwork. So there's a lot of opportunities. And as you proved, you don't need to be at one of those major centres. I think in behind all of this is the industry, sailors, boat builders, designers, navigators, technology, research, sail makers, tacticians, the finance, the budgeting, the team managers, the fitness. There's not just Micah Wilkinson who sits staring the thing at this, I know you'll mention there's a lot of people supporting you and behind it. So look, I just want to thank you for turning up and giving us the opportunity to interview someone like you to support kids, and really appreciate the time you're about to spend with us. What do you remember about school and how it prepared you for what you embarked on as a professional sailor and an Olympian?
Before we talk about me, I just want to mention, in preparation for this, I've listened back to a lot of the podcasts you guys have done, and I've had such a good time. Obviously, a few people I knew from school, Eva, her one was fantastic. And then there was someone like, Sam Bain, who's an engineer, very successful engineer, who went to Christchurch and did the outdoor stuff. I thought if I wasn't sailing, that would have been me. I wouldn't have been as smart as Sam. He sounded like an incredible human. But, listen to these pathways and looking back on what I could have done, I think it's such a cool thing you guys are doing. So I'm excited to be here. To answer your question, if I can remember it.
What was your experience with school? I mean, some people, it's not going to be you, Micah, but, they reflect on the bullying that occurred, or they struggled with. But what do you remember about schooling growing up, and what sort of kid were you? So there's kids sitting there going, oh, yeah, I'm a bit like Micah, or, yeah.
Bit like me, no memory, can't remember the question. School was, I had a really, really good time through primary and intermediate. I remember I made some really close friends, who all that being really positive. And high school, Cambridge High is it's a great school. I met some really cool people, but some of the cool things I do remember is trying to fit in and probably becoming someone who I didn't want to be, trying to not make friends to be cool and that sort of thing. That's what I look back on with a little bit of, if I'd stuck true to who I was a little more, I would have had a slightly better experience. Not that I had a great experience regardless, but that's probably when I first read the questions you were going to put to me and thought, what resonated with me in school, it was around that. Such a big part of school is surviving. It's such a, you got to fit in and then be all that. You don't have to at all. That's completely the wrong thing. But that's what resonated, was not sticking to who I was. And then when it came to the actual schooling side of it, what I was there for, I had some great subjects, had some great teachers, particularly Kelly McLaren and Johnny Peter. I loved the outdoors, as you can see by kind of the career path I've chosen. They were really influential. Kelly was just a machine. I've learned so much from her. in terms of just raw work ethic. And, you know, she had a lot of adversity and she was a busy person, and she still managed to just, you know, operate at a very high level. So she was an amazing role model. And then the classroom side, physics was a course that I was, you know, it's probably my least worst. If I looked at my schooling, I was very much an achieved student. All of my school reports said if he just applied himself a little more, he could be, you know, successful in class. But I never did, because I was just, you know, I was so excited about the outdoors, which is a bit of a regret. I wish I'd just sat down and just pick a subject, you know, physics. You know, physics was the one, you know, just do that well, do it properly. I wish I'd done that. But I did enough to pass, got UE, and we moved on from there.
Can I ask, Mike, because this is really poignant, you mentioned, you know, Johnny, Peter and Kelly in terms of outdoor ed. You know, at the moment there's this big debate and everyone's emailing Erica Stanford in terms of the Minister of Education getting rid of outdoor ed. And there's this real feeling that people maybe just didn't understand the depth of education you receive and how people like you branch into the world and really use it. And maybe we're going to miss Olympians if we don't have outdoor ed, which is not just running around in the wilderness. It's measuring its distance, it's physics, it's survival. It's almost like you pull everything you know from every other subject and you use it. So can you speak to your experience with outdoor ed as we go through this debate as a subject, what it gave you? Because I think it's important at this point in time.
Yeah, I was really surprised to hear that in the news, because New Zealand's an adventure tourism, you know, destination. That's what we love to do. And so when all of a sudden you go, well, where are these people going to come from that are going to, you know, these adventure people? It's really disappointing to hear, because outdoor ed was, you know, it's why I'm living in Christchurch at the moment. It's what I love to do, is, you know, be in the outdoors. I think it's so healthy for people to be outdoors and experience. And at school, you know, I didn't love it. It's the perfect break from a classroom. You know, you sit through maths and an English and a physics, and then the reward was you have your outdoor ed class. You get to do what you want to do. Much like life, sometimes you just have to work your ass off, and then you get rewarded to do stuff that you want to do afterwards. So,
yeah, no, I agree. Okay, so can I just go back? I don't know whether you'll be able to articulate it or not, but when you were mentioning before, you sort of changed tack and went, well, this was my academic. You mentioned you could have maybe done better socially, or not socially, but with I don't know, maybe being a slightly different person or standing true to yourself. Can you just elaborate on that? Did you feel you let yourself down or something, or do you just feel you got tied up in trying to be cool, or what were you saying? Because I think that a lot of kids go through this.
Yeah, I had a really core group of friends coming through, you know, growing up with. And when I got to high school, I guess tried to be friends with people that, you know, weren't good for me, or just for reasons that weren't, you know, just because they were my good mates. And looking back, you know, I didn't burn any friendships, but I certainly strained friendships with my genuinely good friends by, you know, trying to fit in, and it's just, you know, high school, sometimes it feels like socially it's a bit of survival. The reflection of that is, I wish I just, and like a lot of people in this podcast have said, you know, when they found their people and stuck with their people, they were happy. And I wish I'd done that a little more, because it certainly dented my confidence through the latter part of school, and it took a few years to come back from. Not that I was, you know, bullied heavily or anything, but just, you know, that little piece was just missing. And I've learned from that, and, you know, from now on, I hang on, don't try and force, you know, relationships with people that, for reasons that aren't just genuinely, you know, good friends or.
Yeah, brilliant life advice. Nice. So take me back to, you wouldn't even have remembered talking to me, I'm sure, when I said to you, you got towards the end and there was this choice. How many choices did you have when you were departing school? Were you considering lots of options, you know, like uni or polytech or a trade or whatever it was, and sailing? Or what, you know, talk us through that decision making, and then that decision, which I thought was a bold decision at the time, because it sounded like it was to commit to something with another sailor. It was a woman at that stage. I don't know whether it was Erica or someone different, but yeah, can you talk us through that?
The decisions were, for me, it was kind of engineering or was it the outdoor ed pathway, or do I full commit pursue the sailing that I think in year 13 I'd won the youth world champs in sailing. So there was multiple different pathways I could choose from. I was very privileged to be in a position I could choose from each one of them. And the discussions, as you mentioned with Rob Waddell earlier, I had to balls up a little bit and walk up to, I remember it was Sarah Walker, who was our BMX, right? She got silver in London. And then I chatted to Rob Waddell, and I said to them, I went up to them as in year 12 or 13 and said, you guys have chosen to be professional sports people. You've committed. I don't know what to do. I'm 16 years old. I have no idea. It sounds like the smart thing would be to go to uni or, get a degree in some sort. And they just said, well, if you're passionate about it, just have a crack. They both said so many opportunities came from pursuing what they did. They were outside, away from rowing or BMX. I guess that resonated a little bit. So I split the difference. I went to Auckland and started an engineering tech degree at AUT, and then pursued the same. But as a person, I've got a very one-track mind. I'm not good at compartmentalizing and doing multiple things well at once. So I ended up just full commit to sailing because I couldn't do both. So I did, I think I had 8 or 9 or a year and a half of engineering, and then just went, the sailing's going well, I'm full commit.
And so what did full commit mean to you as an athlete from there? That was that 24/7, like training in the gym, nutrition, sailing practice? What does a professional sailor do at those young ages? And what are you aiming for at that point in time? Have you tagged an Olympics? Have you tagged, in a few years, another World Cup? So yeah, how does that work?
Full commit at the time meant kind of there's no compromise that sailing is the number one, getting to the Tokyo Olympics is the number one goal, and nothing in life gets in the way of that, which was, it's what had to happen, but it's also a bit of a mistake. I'll talk about it in a minute in terms of a bit of life balance and a bit of I guess the word wellness. So that was just full commit, obviously gym trainings in the morning, preparing the boat, train from all afternoon, and then finish the day with generally, working on the boat logistics, planning, because we're lucky enough to travel around the world. So just, full time.
And by traveling, you're paying for all this yourself. How do you fund something like this? How do young sailors cope with that? Because you're taking a boat with you. I'm taking a couple of surfboards and a plane, but you're taking a boat. Is that right?
Yeah, there's no denying sailing is not a cheap sport. So I was very lucky at a young age to get a lot of backup from my parents to be able to sail, and winning the Youth Worlds when I was in year 13 in 2013. That was huge because it sets you up on this high performance pathway with High Performance Sport New Zealand. They go, here's a kid, he's 18, he's the best in the world at 18. We're going to fund him through till, an Olympic Games. Not all the time, obviously. There's a lot of stuff around that, but performing at a young age is very helpful. The way the pathway's set up.
So, because I talked to Cam Roygard a lot about this. So, what are they paying for your rent, your food? Like, are they giving you every opportunity to just fully immerse? Someone's paying the bills.
Not quite. So they're fantastic, but not quite. So as a sailor, you have to own your own boats. So I was very lucky to have a grandfather that bought our first race yacht in 2014. And then my parents were epic, and they paid for the first year of halls up in Auckland. Massive gain there. And then, high performance sport, Yacht New Zealand, they international travel, coaching, all that sort of thing.
Micah, at this point, like obviously you were performing great, well, actually world class, at 18. Are there new people entering in at the sport? Like rowing, I started that when I was 17, which was late, but it was doable. Like, is sailing something that if someone's listening now and they're not already in it, is there pathways for them? Or do you see that happening in New Zealand?
There definitely is. If you got the right attitude, you can get there 100%. But it's much easier, like all sports, if you start at a young age. I started, as Blair said, I was 6 when I was pushed out into Lake Aotearoa by my mother in an attempt to probably get rid of me for a few hours. because I was such a hyperactive, annoying child. Sailing's a bit of an experience sport as well. It takes time to so many variables. Every sport's challenging, but it's certainly a lot easier if you start young.
And with that though, like, you get to really know people. I can imagine like sailing's not necessarily got a huge pool of people because it's pretty challenging. In terms of like, you're a young man, you're succeeding, you're competing, what's that social element come in terms of, like, you're probably seeing the same or similar competitors pretty often, and maybe you get competitive out on the water or this and that. Like, how much were you having to check the competitive side? Because it is a small, you don't want to, not that you would ever burn any bridges, but you do have to be conscious of that when you become a professional sports person, of like, I have to watch what I say and how I'm coming across. What was that like for you?
This is hopefully something that can be, a bit more generic for all sports, rather than, because sailing is pretty niche. So hopefully this relates to, rugby players coming through and footballers and rowers. When I was young, I was, fiercely competitive and pretty hard on myself. And in return, you get a little bit hyped up, and with competitors, it's all fire. You compete it, you're all gas. And every day I'll be, pissed off at my own performance and a bit annoyed, and I just wanted to be better than other people in the sport. Sorry, didn't come across very well. I wanted to be the best, and that was pretty challenging. When you're constantly comparing yourself to other people, when you're competing against them and hanging out with them, and they're beating you, and it's quite easy as a young sportsman to get pretty down on yourself and beat yourself up. And I was really lucky. I had I just kept come second, third, way further back, and just beating myself up. And it was, I'd take it out of sailing home, and and just be. And my life was my own personal sense of being was based on performance. And I was really lucky to have a mentor that said to me one day, and like, the sport's challenging. You're one of the best at it. Well, you're not bad at it. Don't let the decisions you make or your bad days. If you made that decision and it didn't work out, it's likely that someone else in that position would do the same thing. So stop beating yourself up. And so it was when I really kind of eased up a little bit and focused on. And it really pained me at a young age to hear, because I just wanted to win, right? And people were going, nah, just focus on the process, focus on yourself, be the best version of yourself. And I was just like, I just want to win. Like, I'm here to win. That's what I'm here for. And it really took, it wasn't until I was 24, 25, I went, holy crap, that's right. You've just got to show up, be the best version of yourself every day and stick to your processes. And it's you versus you in life. And that's really when I had the breakthrough. And because Erica and I, we battled away for years, and 7th, 8th in the world. And it wasn't until we really, me personally, she was already there. I stepped up and kind of started operating like that things started to really roll on.
It's funny because you're talking about that age gap that neuroscience says that the male's brain shuts down till about 23, 24, rewires itself. You're doing what every young male does. You're a little bit away with the fear. But yeah, interesting. If you were to take us back, like I sat in front of that TV that night when you sailed across the line to get that bronze, can you rewind for people? You go, I was a world champ at school. Can you just jump us through, can you remember, you must do, your timeline to that race? Like, I tried to encapsulate it. I'm not going to do it anywhere near as well as you. I left school, I won that champs, I team up. What was your timeline? What were the things you entered, the things you won, to give people to sit back and listen? Because some people will only get to hear you talk once, and it might be today. So talk us through it.
Yep. So in school, won the world champs in 2013 and went to Auckland Uni 2014. And as you say, I won. It wasn't until last year, 2025. So it was 11, 12-year journey to get to the next, which is basically the next medal. I had nothing for the last 8, 9 years. So I left school, went to uni, went in Auckland, started sailing, and God, when you leave school, you're in, and rowers will feel this. You're in under 20, under 18, under 20 categories, and life's good. You're winning. You're up against people your age, and then God, you leave and you join the open category, the elite, and you just get hammered for a very long period of time. And sailing, it took 4 or 5 years before we were even close. So it wasn't till 3 or 4 years ago we started creeping into the top 8 in the world. And the journey, basically, I just lived in Auckland that whole time, went to uni for a year and a half, called out, went flatting. We trained all summer in New Zealand, then basically went to Europe in the winter and raced all winter. And so with a sailing partner for 5 years, I was in a crewing role, not steering the boat, and we had a great few years. So I got better and better, and then probably partly due to my immaturity and a few other reasons, that partnership split up, and I started sailing with Erica and switched roles. I started steering, she was crewing the boat, and it's been 5 years, 4 years of pretty hard grind with no results. Luckily, both of us are battlers, and we managed to stick it out. And then right at the last 6 months up to Paris last year, we had a bit of a breakthrough and eventually came away with the bronze.
So when I mentioned Team New Zealand, and are you always in a two? For people who don't know sailing well, are you a two specialist, or are you? And when I talk Drogba's team, can you talk us through the different roles or teams you're in and how that varies?
Yeah, sorry, let me just elaborate this. So I've sailed the same type of boat since leaving school. So it's a 6 meter long catamaran. It's a male-female, which is one of its unique qualities. It's the only, I don't know if it was last year, but I know in Tokyo, it was the only summer Olympic sport where a male and female compete together. Yeah, it's a pretty unique little foiling catamaran, and it's certainly, it has its challenges, but I've enjoyed every moment. So that's the Olympic sailing. It's in a small 2-person catamaran, and then with the America's Cup stuff, obviously there's the bigger boats, and then the Didier Drogba stuff is a whole different world. That's electric powerboat racing. So that's like a new world series of powerboating. So that's come from being a foiling sailor. These are little foiling electric powerboats. So it's completely niche and out there, but loving it.
So how did that opportunity, does Drogba ring you up one day and go, mate, do you want to drive my electric bike, my electric boat? How did that work?
It's pretty out there. I was sitting after the Olympics. I got a job in Auckland and was sitting there rebuilding a 1970s wooden little cruising catamaran. I'm not really sure what I was going to do next with my life. And I got a call from this team. The team manager was a sailor who knew of me from the Olympics, and knew that I'd done a little bit of motor racing in my early years as well. And the series it's 8 rounds all over the world, electric powerboat, owned by all sorts of random famous owners. They've got Formula 2 drivers and rallycross, world rallycross champions and motocross riders, jet ski racers. And no, they couldn't really figure out what the best athlete to drive a foiling electric powerboat was. So they thought, let's just throw a sailor at it, see what happens. And so I did a test in Italy in November last year, went all right. So I joined Didier Drogba's team. Pretty random, pretty out there, but, ride the wave.
And that's the opportunities you talked about, going back to like when Rob Bedell and stuff were saying, the opportunities that come up through the pursuit of like this passion, sailing. You never would have got that call had you not gone down the sailing path. Like those are the things that if you're sat now as a year 12 or 11 or 13, you're not thinking, I want to go join some really cool rich boat race series. That's not part of it. But those are the opportunities that arise. And Ludlam and I like to talk about that a lot of, at least I do. You set off in somewhere, and if it's really what you want to do, then you're open to those other opportunities, because I'm sure you don't even know what's next in terms of racing and that boats and all that's going to happen. But you're the most transferable skilled person probably to be there when the time comes.
It's pretty random. You don't really know what's next in life, and that's where if you're sitting there in year 12 or year 13, if you've genuinely got a pretty good attitude, you'll be surprised what does come up. If you kind of sit there some days, you work your ass off and you're like, I'm going hard and nothing's happening. It's not working. We're not winning. We're not successful. But in the background, you just never know. As you say, it's a random call. You might get a random opportunity in school that sets you up for an awesome pathway in life. So you just got to go stick at it.
And what you said too is interesting, Ludlam, you said with the brain, and then Micah, when you get into this open class, like you still need to put in that same level of effort, but there's a reason, at least they say with female athletes, I'm not sure with males, your actual prime is when you're 27, and most people have probably stopped the pursuit of it because other life ventures take them, or it's getting too expensive, or what it is. But even though that it might sound like, oh man, I have to wait till I'm 27, I'm not saying that at all, but you do have to lock in if you're an athlete listening at this stage of, like, even if you're world champ in year 13, when you get into the bigger leagues, it's bigger leagues for a reason, but to stick at it and like acknowledge that these people have some years on you. And that's a bit of an adjustment, I can imagine.
Yeah, it was from leaving school to early mid-20s as an athlete can be pretty brutal. You're just getting smashed the whole time, and you never know if you're going to make it. And so, yeah, it's, as you say, you just got to stick at it because your prime is a little bit later. Different sports are different, but yeah, I'm very glad that I managed to stick at it long enough to break through.
So at the moment you're Christchurch, doing what until when?
Good questions, actually. Yeah, I'm in Christchurch because I, much like I listened to Sam. It's like, where do you want to live? I was forced to live in Auckland, not forced. I chose to live in Auckland to go sailing because that's where I had to be to break through. And this year, after the Olympics, most of my sailing, coaching, and power racing is offshore. So there's nowhere. I don't have to be anywhere based in New Zealand. And I love the outdoors, as I mentioned, for Outdoor Ed. And so Christchurch is just epic. My girlfriend's the same. We live right by the Port Hills Mountain. We mountain bike, 3 or 4 days a week. Go skiing when we can, and just love it.
Christchurch is really becoming a place, London, isn't it? Like, every Christchurch person's like, I love it. That I told my doorstep, I'm like, okay, and doorstep.
Yeah, go Christchurch. It is. It's epic. As much as it pains me, because the Crusaders I'm not a Crusader. I'm a Chiefs fan. I wear my Chiefs jersey everywhere and get plenty of looks and get plenty of staunch Christchurch people having a chat. But yeah, that's the only downside down here. It's the rugby team.
Yep. Can you talk us through, Micah, kids, because they just think it's all sailing or all football or, it's all about the sport. Can you talk us through your professional responsibilities? I think you were some sort of spokesman for some of the sailing. Were you? Like, there's things you have to do, and how did you cope with that, and what are some of your responsibilities to be a paid professional?
Certainly, a little bit. There's a bit of added pressure, but not a lot. I mean, there's a few things we have to do each year. I'm up in Auckland for 4 days next week, helping out with the youth trials and the selection for the Youth World Champs, and speak at a few places. But I think I've got off pretty lightly in my career in terms of the actual responsibilities. The way High Performance Sports organise it, they've done a really good job of letting athletes perform to their best without piling on too much pressure. And I've certainly been a benefactor of that. So honestly, the answer is no. There's not a lot. Try and help out where I can, but not a lot of actual responsibilities.
Okay. Can I ask you? You don't have to answer this, Micah, but a kid's deciding whether to go engineering like you started or go sailing. They're now qualified and they own a house, maybe, or have some money in the bank. Are you financially, I know someone's taking care of you and you're surviving. Are you able to make money, or is that the Drogba stuff? How do you actually say, well, I've got some real value. I'm an Olympian. I'm world class. Am I getting financially rewarded, or is that doesn't matter because that's not what you're after?
Yeah, Olympic sport in New Zealand is, it's incredible funding to do the sport you want to do. And it's certainly not a money-making venture. It's a passion project. It's high performance sport. They just don't have the budget to pay athletes well, which is completely fair enough. So, you get sport paid for, enough to live on. But no, that's where the struggle stuff comes in. I do a bit of, I coach Chinese Olympic team as well, a little bit here and there, just because Chinese pay the bill. So yeah, no, it certainly hasn't been a money-making scheme yet, but I hope to turn it into that if I break through America's Cup.
Yeah, we'll talk through that. So what is next for Micah Wilkinson? Are we seeing you in a two-person boat at the next Olympics and the next Olympics, or have you got a little plan where you're going to go one more time? Yeah, so what pace us through the dream next 10 years for Micah Wilkinson?
The dream's always been to be driving the New Zealand America's Cup team, Team New Zealand. I remember year 13, we watched the San Francisco Cup in class. It was on at 10 in the morning, so we sat there and watched it and watched ourselves get beaten. And so my whole career has been Olympics and America's Cup, so I really want to break through there. I'm not really sure how yet. We've got so much talent in New Zealand sailing. So as part of that process, I'll crack on to the LA Olympics, putting together a plan now. I said I'd give it 10 years when I left school, and if I won a medal when I was 28, which was 10 years, that'd be enough. But it never is. Bronze is not gold. I've still never won a high-level regatta. So lots of things like that. So America's Cup will be the dream. Sail GP. Definitely having a crack at the Olympics. Been training, obviously the fitness training's gone hard this year. Haven't done much on the water training, but that's going to ramp up pretty soon. And yeah, I don't know. It's exciting. I'm in an amazing position where I can choose kind of the next few steps. So excited to crack on.
So tell us, what is the difference then between a good sailor, an excellent sailor, and the one who wins? Because for some of us, if you play rugby, you just got to be maybe a bit fitter, a bit stronger, a bit faster. But in your sport, is it that? Is there any defined thing, or is it an unbelievable Kelly Slater surfing talent thing? Someone sees something different than someone else, or is it luck because the wind was on their side on the day? How is it measured? How can you get better?
Sailing it's the top 2 inches mostly. As a sport, you have to be, X amount fit to sail the boat to a high enough level, and then from there, it's a decision-making sport. Some people, and I'm sure you've seen it, Blair, when you're watching a surf competition and they can just pick the waves, they got a 10-minute heat or whatever it is, and they just have this innate ability to pick the right wave. Sailing's the same. People can just read the wind and the conditions because there's variables around what side of the course you choose to sail. You can't sail straight into the wind, so you got to pick what side of the course, and there's different patterns, and being able to identify that and make decisions with your teammate, which is a key part of it. There's 2 people, there's 2 sets of eyes, there's 2 different feelings on board the boat. What's the next step for Erica and I up to Paris? We did a lot of hours together, but we didn't end up. There's a lot of time, a lot of going through the motions. We didn't communicate to a high enough level. We didn't combine 2 brains into one well enough. So the next step for me in terms of growth would be I've got to pick another sailing partner. Erica's pregnant and due in about 6 weeks, so she's not going to be up for LA potentially. You never know. But yeah, it'll be a new sailing partner and just developing that how you interact with someone, and learn together and read the conditions.
So do you get to pick? That's just a concept that's a bit confusing to me. You pick the person, or does high perform does New Zealand sailing say this is your partner? What does that look like?
I guess I'm a bit different to rowing. Sailing's a little bit more athlete kind of led, which is a bit odd.
I love it, but wild.
So I essentially, trial various sailing partners. I guess, to put it bluntly, pick myself. And it's it's a bit different. There's a very limited amount of female sailors, especially experienced female sailors in the Olympic program. And I'd love to chat about it. It's a much easier decision sometimes for a male athlete to keep charging through and continuing with a longer career. And so particularly we see such a massive fall off in female athletes in sailing after school and after uni. So there's very few to choose from.
You have already, though, with what you did at the last games, I'm sure maybe you won't see those results immediately, but that would have inspired a whole group of young female athletes as well as male athletes into sailing. So what you and Erica have done is contributing towards that. So that's something cool, but it's not going to help you pick your partner for LA because those ones will be younger. Are there other this is a selfish question, are there other sports that you would look at and go your rowing or your kayaking or what's the most transferable sport to sailing?
Good question, Grace. It's not one I've thought about very much. I want to say chess. I don't know, because in terms of athleticism, the boat I sail, there's some incredible sailing athletes out there, and my sailing partner is one of them. She was in the super physical role on the boat. She's a machine that could probably do anything. But for me, myself, I don't know. I think certainly not high jump.
Well, because it is like when sevens rugby became like an Olympic sport, and it was this, they weren't looking, maybe in New Zealand we had more talent to work from, but like you weren't looking at rugby players, you were looking at sprinters or other sports, because it was like, oh, we need speed and these other things. So it is interesting about the cross sport opportunities. And as sailing gets more of a profile in New Zealand, hopefully more people will make that and like that jump in high school and go, oh, actually, that's for me. Or the chess players, as you say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about it now. There's probably some amazing rugby players that, because with an innate ability to read the game and what's going on ahead of time, that that sort of skill is what would be strong and to become a sailor.
Grace pictures herself with her sailing hat on.
Yeah. Oh, I'm pretty good at chess, Micah. Just like,
bring it on. Let's go.
Look, I mean, people are going to be sitting there now. You've sort of raised the issue. How many people are you looking at, or you not? And how long is it going to take you to decide? Because you need to start sitting in the boat with someone to build that relationship, I'm presuming. Are you being cagey because you've sort of got a few people in mind, or how does it work?
It is a very it's been an experience, because I've been messaging various girls and saying, what are you up to? What's going on? So from that, it's a bit odd. Keep it professional, of course, but I just don't. I don't really know at the moment. It's now that I've decided that this is a passion I want to pursue. It's who's going to join me in this 3-year ordeal. Yeah, and it's hard to decide because the dynamics. You spend 300 days a year together. So you got to pick. There's a certain sailing ability, but also a personable side.
And this is just hypothetical. If you went, I'm going to make a world-class sailor out of Grace, I think she's got everything I need. Or you went to a rugby, you found an athlete somewhere and you were brave enough to go, I'm going to turn them into the sailor I need. Or I think, would the sport back you? Or would they just have to fund themselves? Or are they trusting you?
I think there's a little with my experience, because this boat's so weird and funky and there's not many people that sail it. There'd be a little element of trusting me and going, all right, you've actually you've sailed this boat the most out of anyone in the last decade. If you think that's going to work, then maybe have a crack. But this is where when it comes to these decisions, I certainly don't make them myself. I'm very lucky to have a mentor or a couple of mentors and people around me. And I'd like to talk about that because having the support around, and, I'm not highly intelligent myself. And I think that's a weakness, but also a strength, that I acknowledge that. And you build people around you to make these sorts of decisions, because trying to battle through it by yourself, you're going to get them wrong, more than 50% of the time. So I've got a lot of people to help.
Well, and you're tired too. Like that's something we hear a lot of people talk about, having people around them, support system, board of directors. But as an athlete too, you're tired a lot of the time. So when you are making these decisions, it pays to have people that haven't just used their brain and their physical power for the last few hours to have that. So that's a good note. If you're listening and you're up and coming, find some people that can help you and have your best interests at mind as well.
Exactly. And one thing I learned, which I'm still not good at, but trying to develop, is most people, unless they're real dickheads, most people get a kick out of helping other people. And it's something that I didn't utilize enough of when I was younger. If I have people come up and ask me a question now and I can help them with that, I'm like, epic, that was cool. That's a win-win. And so if you're, coming through, go up to your coach, your teacher, and, ask questions, ask for advice. Say, look, I'm in a spot, I can't decide. A lot of people enjoy giving that feedback, and it's terrifying when you're young, or even now for me, talking to people, to put yourself out there and ask those questions. But, it's a way of developing a relationship to someone as well. Like someone like key mentors, I was just brave enough to go up and say, look, I need your help. And it's developed into a friendship that's been really beneficial.
Before Micah, two brains. Who do you have in behind you? I know if it was a rugby player, you're going to have a physio and a nutritionist and who is behind you? Yeah, who is behind Micah Wilkinson? Is there set professionals in behind you? Who are they?
Yeah, so at a real sailing level, we've got, obviously, Erica and I, we're on the boat together. We've got our coach, Anton. He's Spanish. We brought him in. Super nice guy. Gold medalist from 2008, but the most humble guy you'll ever meet. So he just fitted into the team really well. So it's the three of us on the water. And then I got what we call our tight team, where we've got a mentor and then two mentors, basically, who aren't on the ground with us and wherever we're competing, but they are in the background. I'll talk to them during regattas. And, so there's 5 people that you're kind of like, this is our unit. This is our decision-making team. This is what it's your people. I love that. I heard Eva say, Grace, you've said it. My sister said it, I found my people, and it's such a strong thing that it's hard to find in life. So that was our core group. And then behind that is a huge team of people at Aotearoa New Zealand High Performance Sport that, physio, all sorts, physios, nutritionists, physiologists, campaign planners, logistics, just to help, ease that. We're super lucky that we had people to help, reduce the workload so you could just go out and sail. And then the most important, of course, was, my girlfriend Kate and my parents and grandparents. They're so fundamental to making all this happen.
Is there an opportunity, Micah, in behind this? It's fearful Erica goes and you speak so highly of her. There is a chance you gel with someone and go to another level, and that's equally she could have gone with someone else because you did something different, got injured, and she might have, and it's not anything against you. Is there a chance in the back of your mind that this thing could be a good thing?
Yep. And Erica's going to be involved regardless, whether she, has 2 kids and goes, I'm back on the boat, or, she'll definitely be there in a mentoring, coaching role. She'll be there. We developed such a cool relationship that, she'll be kicking around, hanging out, helping out. She's awesome.
I was just going to tell you a little story. There's someone in Auckland who was building this big boat, and they've got a bit old for it, and they're donating it to the local school here. And the school's going to be allowed to refinish this boat. I mean, this is a school that also builds planes. Like, the kids get to join an academy and build a plane. So some really cool things that go on. Geez, I'd love to get you in town when this boat's launched, and you can be the guest celebrity, because it's such a cool opportunity for kids to build a boat. Yeah.
That's awesome. God, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, wicked. Okay, so who has, again, I wonder whether you've been slightly cagey with me. Team New Zealand, they must communicate with you. Is there conversations occasionally, or are you completely on the outer waiting for a phone call one day? How does it work in amongst what we believe is probably our pinnacle team in terms of you? Are you a nobody? Are you in their sights? Is there communication? Where is it?
I'm completely on the outer at the moment. And it's probably my own doing. If I wanted to be there, I'd be hammering on the door, sweeping the floors, kind of, that's just a fact. I wanted to move out of Christchurch. My girlfriend, she finished uni last year and was desperate for an optometry job down here. And I said, yeah, cool. We've just spent the last between 6 and 8 months, a year apart, for the last 4 or 5 years. So I'll move with you to Christchurch and let's do that. So that's probably what's held me back the most from Team New Zealand. If I called them up and said, yep, I'm there, I'm sweeping floors, I'll be part of the team at a lower level. But the sailors themselves, they're legends. You need something shinier than a bronze to drive that boat at the moment. So give me a minute.
Yeah, and that's how you write your CV. If you can get a silver or a gold, things change.
Yeah, or either that, or I fundamentally just am part of the team and I help them out at a lower level and work my way out, which I haven't done yet.
Wicked. In terms of your emotional just handling, you've touched on it a few times at school, and is it the physical and the mind stuff? Where are you at? Do you believe as an individual managing both those? It seems to me you reflect a lot on your emotional well-being. Would that be right?
Yeah, I do. And it comes from a performance place. It's it pained me as a kid to say it, but it's so much of what if you want to get the best out of yourself, you've kind of got to be the best version of yourself, which means you got to self-reflect and try and improve. It's not just grind and win. There has to be an element of understanding yourself, understanding your strengths, but also more importantly, understanding your weaknesses. I guess that came from a space where certainly developed more recently. A year out from the Olympics last year, and this is from really performance pointed. A year out, we said we're not going to win a medal. We're not good enough. Our the level of talent, how we're operating, we're going to show up in Paris. If we continue to operate the way we are, we're going to get 7th. And it's a pretty honest conversation, and it was a really cool one to have with a teammate. What are we going to do? And the only way we saw that we could really break through, we just didn't have enough time. A year sounds like a lot, but at that level, you don't go from 7th to a medal in a year without a big breakthrough. So we said, well, the best way we can do it is to learn how together how to perform under pressure and become the best team when in those moments. And we worked with a guy called Kerry Evans. He's the All Blacks psychologist. We're lucky that you got a New Zealand boardman. And he was the one that really sparked it as well. He said, look, you guys are just training to train. You're not training to be the best. You're going through the motions too much. As much as we thought every day we were giving everything, there's always more, right? So we had a really cool conversation with him, and we worked with him closely. And as a team, we did all these personality tests and understood each other a lot more because, as you know, understanding how Erica ticks and and vice versa, I understood myself more. It really it made us work together as a team more. And our whole process sparked a lot of self-reflection, personality tests, working together. And our campaign was then from briefing and debriefing and all the performance conversations being all right, are we going fast? Are we fit enough? We started leading with communication. So communication was the base of it was the start of all of our conversations. Obviously, you talk about your fitness and the boat and all the tactics and stuff, but the core start of each conversation, we would go, how do we communicate on board today? Because, all right, sail was too flat. That's why we were slow. But why was it? And it was always we hadn't talked to each other, or we hadn't, I was feeling a certain way on the boat and the conditions, and I hadn't communicated that, so she couldn't process it. And we sailed, we'd fought each other, not because we wanted to. We were trying to work together, but we just didn't have the process. So it was a very cool change where, how we interacted and communicated became core value.
That's what you're looking at doing, isn't it, Grace?
Yeah, that's why I was like, and that's Micah, my next move, as I'm going to start, I want to do sports psychology. And it's because of what you said there, where I actually remember in my last season, I just went back to having fun and being like, it's a privilege that I can be doing this and it's paying for my school and stuff. And then it correlated with performing better. And sounds like what you had there where, yes, you can do all those other bits and you can grind harder and work. But then when you have a breakthrough, which comes from the sports psych element, as an athlete who's always looking at the data, you can't deny it. And you're like, oh man, it really is the top 2 inches and it's making that difference. So I just think the fact that you two a year out were able to make that big of a change, it comes down to that sports psych element, which is really interesting.
Oh, I'm excited to hear that you're going to be cracking into it because it is such particularly in New Zealand, it's a really hard nut to crack. We just work harder and we just do more hours and and so it's starting that culture is going to be really rewarding.
Yeah, and it is definitely a culture shift. And I was fortunate to be in the States where they had access to there is an abundance of cash, which is a bit ridiculous for college sports and whatnot. But that was something that was completely accessible. And I think in New Zealand, there's a tide turning, but there's not enough. It's not even a registered scope of practice in New Zealand sports psychology, which is fascinating. And it's, speaking of passion, it's the first time I felt passionate about something that much, where I'm like, I want to see that change. So I hope to do that.
Oh, it's exciting. And you've already learned so much yourself, or I learned so much about myself through that process. And so you just continue to do the same.
Yeah, that learning about yourself, isn't it, Mike, is a pretty interesting because you do seem on a level emotional and you reflect a lot. And so there's just going to be days someone's got to see that in you, isn't it? And go, Mike is in that mood, so I'm going to have to do that. But equally, you have to know yourself. It's so fascinating. And that must be your slight scary thing with the new partner, knowing now we don't just jump in the boat and try and go 24/7 sailing. We've got to get to that minute level or we're still seventh.
It is. It's because it's so rewarding. Like Eric and I, we got to a point where you didn't have to say anything. You know what they're thinking, and you just say with partners in life and friends, and it's a rewarding place to get to, and it's daunting to try and do that again. But
yeah. I mean, it's even those, they talk about it in the All Blacks, like a Richie McCaw would know which member of the team to say what. Some need the kick in the ass and the other guy needs a little hand on their shoulder as they walk past, and that's enough. They know that, it's a depth of high performance beyond everything. Quite special.
Yeah. It's very cool. It's and I guess I reflect, that's why I made some of the comments earlier about looking back on high school and who I was. I didn't realize that, I actually burned some friends and acted like a bit of a dick because I was just, so wanting to be socially accepted. And so, the more I learn, the less I know. So.
Yeah.
No, wicked. Hey, look, Micah, I just want to thank you for your time. I think that like I say, there's a lot of kids out there, athletics, just being a high performance athlete, seeing people like you, and I'm sure a lot of them watched you at the Olympics. But like I said, sailing communities around New Zealand, there's a lot of kids who are in boats who will, I know, just love hearing from someone like you. You are a real role model. But just thank you for every time you put up your hand. That time I reached out and said, come to a prize giving, like you didn't hesitate. So clearly you understand your role. I mentioned the same to Cam Roygard. There's professional, but there's just a genuine good guy thing with it. And that honest Kiwi attitude is so refreshing. So thank you for all you've done for us and by being here and all you're doing for others. It's wicked.
Oh, right back at you. This podcast has just been I've learned heaps. So I'm really hoping that some students, that listen to this get a real kick out of it because it's really valuable stuff.
I'm not going to forget this time. I forgot on the last interview, Micah. And I love everything you said there about everyone else who's going to listen and hear and be inspired. But the sign-off question is always, if you could go back, and you've touched upon this, but Micah to year 12, 13, what advice would you be giving yourself?
I love this question, Grace, because it made me think so much. And listening to the other people on the podcast, I was like, it's just so much, good advice. For me, it's on quite a personal level of, I wish year 12 me had just, stuck with my good mates, stuck with what I believe in a little bit. Don't try and be someone who you're not, because you just end up being a dick. That's probably on a personal level. And then on a sporting and performance level, I wish year 12 me, I just drifted through a little bit too much. I didn't go, all right, I've got physics out the red, so I'm going to crush those. I'm going to have a good attitude. I'm going to smash it, and then, and then switch off in the evenings when I switch off. If you don't, I mucked around in class and then I regretted it and didn't sleep well because I was just, I probably should have listened in class today. So switch on in class and then just switch off. There's like a switch that you flick. That was probably the other one.
Oh, those are incredible. Seriously, and everything Ludlam said and more. And if you are looking for a sail partner, when I'm back in New Zealand, we'll see how that goes. Seriously, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you, Micah.
Can I ask? I'm going to kick myself if I don't, Micah, although we always finish with graces. I've got to make the most of having you as a sailor on the show. There are kids at school sailing. They want to be you or they want to be in a Team New Zealand. What can they do specifically sailing? Forget about all the other athletes. In terms of sailing, what's your advice to them? They're not now Micah in year 12, 13, they're someone else. What have you got for them?
You got to be in Auckland. You got to be in the sail. You got to be sailing boats in Auckland. Realistically, if you want to be Olympian, America's Cup, you start at the Olympic level. It's like an apprenticeship. You go it can be, there's all sorts of different types, different paths of match racing and stuff, but go live in Auckland, go work in the industry. You know, if you can work for Team New Zealand, as I said before, I'll sweep floors, get involved, meet the people that kind of run the show. Or my pathway, go hard at the Olympics, get a dinghy, get a sailing mate, and just send it. Yeah, that's probably the key ones.
Wicked.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate. Keep doing what you're doing, because it's fantastic to watch.
No, I really appreciate it. There's so much that I've got my notes in front of me that I've missed that I wanted to say, but it doesn't matter. I'll probably talk about myself a bit much, but it's been awesome. I really appreciate you guys. So
Wicked, mate. Take care of yourself, and we'll let Alex know that her gold medal in pottery is slightly trumping you at the moment. But
she's so much more competitive than I am. Yeah, if she was an athlete, she's a gold medal every day of the week, because when it comes to playing Monopoly or cards at home, she's a weapon. You know, I'm sitting back relaxing, and she's like, "I'm going to win everything."
oh, and could I say your father's an outstanding man too? The times I've had to approach him, so what a good guy he is.
Haven't touched on enough in this is that I've been very lucky with my parents. You know, they're so supportive that it's enabled all of this. So appreciate him.
Okay, mate. Take care, and we'll catch up.
Yeah, but see you guys.